Digital Days Gaming Episode 2. We survived our first week, and people seem to like it.
Yeah, people like new and shiny things, so we'll see what week two brings us once we're just like an old podcast.
Yeah. So this is the first week that we are doing the stream or the podcast live on Twitch. So twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming. You can watch it live on Sunday nights at 9:30 Eastern time. And then, like we said before, the podcast will upload later in the week. Tentatively, the schedule right now is Fridays at noon. That could move up depending on how things are going with certain aspects, as we are still figuring out our personal schedules, how long it takes to edit, the ability of the company that we use, Simplecast, to upload a podcast at a certain time. So we're still tinkering with things. But right now the schedule is live on Sunday evenings, uploading by Friday morning, noonish Eastern time, and still going back and forth with that. So we've done a whole bunch of social media pushing, obviously, since we launched technically only 3 days ago, but it feels like it was a very long 3 days.
Yeah, it has.
And there was a bunch of stuff going on too while we launched, and we weren't sure how great that was or wasn't going to be. But we appreciate everybody, the follows and the Twitter follows and the Facebook likes and the Facebook group joining, the Twitch follows, all of it. YouTube subscriptions. The amount of views that we got on YouTube is actually what kind of blew me away the most right off the bat. But it wasn't 100% available on all Apple services. We learned a lot of things use Apple. So,
Yeah. I kind of expected that to be a thing, but we were at the mercy of Apple's approval system,
yeah.
which doesn't really give you a lot of insight on how long it's going to take.
But I think we got all the kinks worked out. So if there is a podcast service that you normally use, and for some reason that Digital Days Gaming is not showing up on there, please let us know, and we can look into it. You let us know on Facebook, on Twitter, email, anything that you would like, and we can check it out and try to fix it. The only one that I know for sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but I know for sure that we're not doing is Pandora, because you said that they had something funky in their TOS about ad revenue.
Yeah, that sounds like they overlay ads, and that's just not like they overlay ads, and then whether you make revenue off that is very uncertain. It's kind of at their discretion. So let's grow a little bit before we approach Pandora, basically. And I didn't even know Pandora still existed,
right?
To be honest.
I think we got all the major basics covered with iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify and other services that link with iTunes. So we are up to episode 2. So we did actually survive the first one, and we're back, and we're going to jump right into the news. I was traveling this weekend, so I didn't get a lot of time to look at things. I was messing with a lot of the social media stuff that we were doing, but I do know that BlizzCon happened on Friday the 1st.
Yes, BlizzCon happened. It opened while we were away. Blizzard kind of got into a little bit of trouble with how they were handling the Hong Kong protests and their games. So people going into this year's BlizzCon were very curious to see, will there be protests? Will Blizzard come out and talk about their bad takes on the protests? And there were protests outside of BlizzCon, and they did sort of address the Hong Kong situation and their bad reaction to it in terms of, for those that aren't aware, there's a little background. One of the players that won a tournament said "Free Hong Kong" and wore a mask, and Blizzard suspended him and took away his prize earnings for that tournament. And then that just led to an outburst from the community of just, they're silencing someone. They disqualified him, suspended him. And that just sparked a bunch of stuff to where the point where Mei from Overwatch became an icon for the Hong Kong protest and was being used to spite Blizzard to see if they can get China to ban Overwatch and stick it to Blizzard. So Blizzard ate a lot of shit the last couple weeks for how they handled that. And they kind of did a non-apology to open BlizzCon. Like they said, like, we messed up, but they never really said, like, we're sorry and how we're going to fix the situation. It was just kind of like, yep, that happened. And was kind of weird. The crowd at BlizzCon accepted it because obviously the people that are going to BlizzCon are diehard Blizzard fans. But it was definitely a weird way to start off BlizzCon. But they had to address it, and they kind of addressed it in an indirect way. But then they got into the games. So we saw Diablo 4 finally. They didn't formally announce it before, but they said, they're working on Diablo 4. It's going to be a darker side of Diablo. I know, Dave, you played Diablo a little bit, right?
Very, very little.
Very little.
Just very, very little. Never really got super into it.
Yeah, they said this is going to be going back to the darker roots, and they showed some gameplay and some of the MMO systems that are going to be in it in terms of like running into other players and things like that. But it's still at its core Diablo. So it's, isometric action. Then from there, they got into a bunch of stuff that me and Dave aren't really too into in terms of like Hearthstone and World of Warcraft.
I respect what Hearthstone is and the amount of people that play that game, but I've never personally checked it out myself.
Yeah, same. And I've always been afraid of the World of Warcraft kids growing up, so I've stayed away from World of Warcraft. Though a lot of my friends and like coworkers are playing it again since they released WoW Classic. Mm-hmm. So they announced expansions coming to that and the things for like the full game. Or the current WoW. And then to jump to the thing that I'm most excited about, and I think Dave actually was kind of impressed with what he saw, but I might destroy some of those surprises that Dave had for that. But Overwatch 2 was formally announced. It was leaked a little bit before, and Overwatch 2 is going to be weird. So it's going to be they're adding a PvE kind of campaign. They're adding a hero upgrade system for the PvE stuff, like with hero missions or legend missions, where you get new abilities for the heroes for the PvE and the hero missions. And then they're going to add new characters, obviously, new maps, and
it's
a new play mode.
Game, right?
Yes. But they're doing something interesting for the old game. They said that the game's going to be kind of cross-play, or it's going to be cross-play with Overwatch 1. Overwatch 1 players aren't going to be left behind. They're still going to get the new heroes and the new maps to the first game because they said they have 50 million players in the first game and they don't want to leave them behind. They don't want to fracture their community. So that stuff is going to be cross-play between Overwatch and Overwatch 2. It's going to be the heroes and the maps are going to be playable for the people that still have the base game. And I'm assuming that means they're going to continue to be free for the base game because they don't want to fracture that community at all. And this is the way they're going to do it, which is super interesting way of doing things. Which I'm super happy about just because I've built up got at least over 1,000 hours, maybe 2,000 hours in Overwatch 2.
It also solves the problem for all the loot boxes and the skins and the things that the players have earned and everything like that.
Mm-hmm. And the good thing is, if you do just make the jump from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, your cosmetics, the stuff you've earned, is going to carry over. I'm just really curious on how the system's going to work and how long they plan to keep that running before, they cut it off, especially as new consoles are approaching. And they're doing a new art design, a little bit of an art design for Overwatch 2. So I'm wondering how that's going to play with each other. They said Overwatch 2 is in development for PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. I don't know how true that's going to be with there not being a release window or date and the new consoles coming out next year. But I would imagine they would probably they would have to stick with that and then bring it out on the new consoles, and hopefully cross-play between all the different consoles will be a thing, except maybe minus the Switch because the Switch is kind of a mess of a game.
So the crossplay aspect, though, are they saying that like Xbox can play against PlayStation crossplay?
No, no, it's just crossplay between Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2.
Platform to platform, or console to console.
Yeah, specific to that
PlayStation
console.
to PlayStation.
Yeah, PlayStation to PlayStation, Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2. They haven't gotten any details on that. I hope they open it up to where Xbox people can play with PlayStation, especially from what I understand, the hierarchy is, in terms of the community, is Overwatch on PC is the biggest community, followed by PS4 and then Xbox One. So I would imagine they would just want to just combine Xbox and PS4 together just to keep that community as large as possible, especially if they're going to expand with the second game.
So what is like? So what's the two then? So like what would make you buy another disc?
I'm guessing it is the PvE stuff, the story aspects of it, because they showed a cinematic and I was in the middle of work watching it, but damn, did I almost want to cry watching that cinematic.
I watched that
so
8-minute thing. That looked really good.
Yes, and the only thing that bummed me out is the story and the gameplay parts they were showing of the story. They were all going to maps that are in Overwatch 1, and they're saying like, showing you like PV stuff to do and that stuff, and they were literally the actual maps.
So is
from
this just
Overwatch
a horde
1.
mode on the current maps?
Yes, which they kind of currently do for some holidays like Halloween and like the anniversary. They do that already. Mm-hmm. Hopefully this is more in depth, but as soon as they started to like show the map, I'm pretty sure 99% of those points on the map are current maps in Overwatch 1, which just kind of bummed me out a little, and I'm hoping there's more there. Otherwise, I'm going to just stick with Overwatch 1. They did announce a new mode will be in there, but they weren't really clear on if that new mode for PvP is going to be in the first game or if that's just going to be exclusive to Overwatch 2. They did say that new mode will be in play for Overwatch League next season, or not next season, when the game comes out, whatever season that would be. I would assume next season. So I'm wondering if that mode is going to be the thing that cuts it off. If it's like, oh, you can only play this mode that you see in Overwatch League in Overwatch 2, and that's how they try and get fans to jump over.
So, based on Blizzard's track record, how confident are you that we think that we're going to see Overwatch 2 on PS4?
I think because they said it and because they want it to be backwards compatible with Overwatch 1, I think we will see it on PS4. It's just how fast they release it. If they release it next year, definitely PS4. If they release it 2-3 years down the road, there's no way in hell they're bringing it to PS4. Mm-hmm. It's just weird. We know PS5 exists. We know Xbox exists, or Xbox, whatever it's called, Scarlet, or
the Xbox.
Yeah, we know those exist. The fact that they didn't say it is kind of weird. Makes me hopeful that it's out next year, and that it's just gonna beat the new consoles to market. But
at that point in time, it's November. Like, why, if it's going to come out in June or July, like, why wouldn't you just say it?
Because then they can do it BlizzCon next November, and then just be like,
yeah, but by then the new consoles are out.
Yeah, which would be a good time to have a launch game out there.
No, I know, but I mean, like, I'm saying that they're saying PS4.
Yeah.
So like, like it's just weird.
That's why I would hope it would be out sooner than the new consoles.
Yeah.
But old Blizzard, take their time. This new Blizzard, who Activision has just been getting into more and more, I don't know if they'll have time. But yeah, I was still excited from the cinematic. Yeah. But it is going to be a question on whether it is worth me going from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 for a PvE mode, based on their track record of really good cinematics, okay PvE holiday stuff. Because if it's just the holiday stuff, no.
And is that PvE mode going to be worth $60?
Yeah, because I already own Overwatch 1, so I'll have the multiplayer portion of the game.
Because then for me, like, I could just go buy Overwatch 1, if like right now,
which is $20. Yeah.
So like, unless this thing's going to be like $30 and it's just going to be like, maybe it's going to run a little bit better or something like that. I mean, it can't run too much better, but
because they have to do the compatibility.
Right, but I mean, I'm really curious about like a game like Call of Duty Modern Warfare that has cross play. Like, I know that if you opt into it, you're facing off against somebody that has better resolution and better frames than you on
Yep.
PC. So, like,
Well, I would imagine, because Overwatch specifically, when it comes to PC, I don't think they'll ever do crossplay PC to console, just because the meta is completely different because of mouse and keyboard.
yeah,
Like, you don't see any of the snipers really on console, just because it's just way too slow and doesn't really work well with the aim assist. And on PC, the snipers are in the meta and they're godlike because of the keyboard and mouse. That I feel like Overwatch especially would just not do well if they went crossplay, especially because the PC community is larger on PC,
right.
as opposed to a Call of Duty, which the console is going to be the lead platform.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, it'll be interesting. Like I said, I watched that 8 minute cinematic when I was in the car, and it actually looked really good. It kind of like was the stuff that kind of intrigued me about Overwatch in the first time before I found out it was just a PvP only mode, which my gaming habits have changed since Overwatch was announced, to where I was like, I don't know what that is, but all the little stories the little trailers they would show of each of the characters or the heroes, like that always intrigued me, to where I always thought that Overwatch had some type of a campaign. So it having some kind of a campaign is something that is intriguing to me. That it would be something that would possibly interest me in playing, and then eventually evolving that to PvP, similar to how my relationship with Destiny was and is, in terms of, I really like cooperative PvE games, but I will go into PvP when I want to or when it's necessary.
Yeah.
So, something else that was also slightly rumored and seems kind of interesting and weird at the same time. We've been talking about some of these companies, services, and like similar to like Xbox Game Pass and PS Now. EA and Steam have reached a deal to cooperate and work together. Which is pretty interesting. So EA Access will be something that is purchasable through Steam. And Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, it starts with Jedi Fallen Order this month, November. It'll be available for pre-order on Steam. You still need to make an Origins account. You'll still need to make an Origins account if you get EA Access. It sounds like EA Access will be a little bit farther down the road, but this partnership is initially starting with the Jedi Fallen Order game. So I personally think this is very interesting, because there are some people that think that EA games are only available on console, because they don't realize that EA Origin is a thing sometimes. I know that with a little bit I'm dabbling into PC gaming, I find it very annoying that I have to open up like separate apps to play games.
See, I've kind of trained myself not to be annoyed by that, just because I know competition is good and I don't like Steam having a monopoly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm weird.
No, you're fine. But I don't, I see, from a business standpoint, I see how this benefits, easily benefits, EA and Steam. More users on Steam, and then obviously purchasing EA products is always just a good thing. So I definitely see where that aspect is coming from. What are your initial thoughts? Like, is this anything that you think that directly affects you?
I'm surprised EA didn't make a deal with Epic, because everyone makes a deal with Epic. Yeah, EA, like, Origin doesn't really do sales as well as Steam does, so getting EA games on Steam sales will probably be very beneficial to a lot of people and myself. I still don't know if EA Access or EA Access Premier is worth it, but I'm not really a fan of like the single publisher having their own like subscription service. But I'm curious to see if so when EA originally left Steam back in 2010, they let you transfer your library from Steam to Origin, or at least for the games that EA owns. I don't think they're going to do that for this.
Mm-hmm.
So I would hope they would have, but looks like I don't know. Part of me wonders if this is EA's way of winding down Origin, like see if this goes well.
That's what a lot of people were thinking already.
Like it's probably expensive to keep your own service running, and then if their library is limited to EA games and EA games haven't been hitting lately, that this is like them testing the waters, and then maybe Epic is next, and then they just close down Origin in like 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't like an unprecedented step because like Ubisoft did this with The Division on the Epic Store. They have their own Uplay store. Even if you bought the game on the Epic Store, you still had to make a Uplay account to access the game. So it was just more or less that Epic was a, quote unquote storefront for them, somewhere else that their game was being advertised and being shown to people that it exists. If you were having, maybe you didn't know that Uplay exists.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be similar. So you'll see something, you'll see, more than likely, Jedi Fallen Order will show up at the top of the Steam charts like the first week it's out, obviously. And then so customers will see that and then they'll be able to purchase it and download it through there. So it's just more exposure for EA.
Yeah, it's more exposure, and Steam already has like separate deals for big publishers or people that are going to make them money. So their cut is probably high. Compared to other developers on Steam. So EA won't be losing a ton of money by doing this. It'll just be like putting the game on PSN or something. And the rates are better than PSN and Xbox for Steam for certain publishers. So this can only do EA well. I think it might be the test market of like how well can we do outside of Origin. And if the number's big enough, maybe Origin goes away. It just depends on like what EA wants to do in their future.
Yeah, it could possibly be one less thing to manage without a huge reduction in profit.
Yep, and companies are always looking for ways to like cut expenses, and this is definitely a way for them to do that. Especially they need their games to hit. They haven't had their games really hitting too much, so especially with like Star Wars, because I wouldn't be surprised if Disney has a deal where Star Wars has to be this, like a certain amount of success needs to happen for the Star Wars games. And this is a good way to bolster that by putting it on Steam instead of just Origin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it'll definitely be interesting to see how any of that plays out. So, and something that I think that I pretty much nailed, we're going to move on to the next one, something I think I pretty much nailed right away because I didn't know what kind of game this was or how it was going to be perceived or anything like that. Death Stranding reviews hit over the weekend. I have a couple friends of mine that I know personally that have played and reviewed this game. And I feel like the common mantra that's coming from this is that this game is a pain in the ass to play, but you should still play it.
Yes, it is definitely turned into some weird thing where I've read multiple reviews that are like, this game isn't fun. 10 out of 10. And
you're like, what?
I'm like, wait, what? It's gaming. Why isn't it fun? It's definitely, a lot of people consider it an important game. A lot of people, feel like it's important for Kojima to make these sorts of games, and it is important in terms of him being able to express himself and just make weird shit, because I love weird shit. But holy crap, the reviews were so all over the place. I just wasn't expected it. Like right now, it's evened out a little bit more to where like it's a 84 on Metacritic, which is really good. But that first day, reviews were all over the place, and places you thought were going to give it a high score gave it a middling score. Places you thought would give it a bad score or giving it a high score. It's kind of all over the place and made me question whether I'm going to spend money day one to get it. But I feel like I need to. It just scares me because I heard people saying like, it's one of those games that like maybe by the 20th or 30th hour, it's not good. And then it gets slightly better, but then.
Yeah, I've heard like an 8 to 13 hour window, like to where you like start doing things, and then almost like, and again, I don't understand the gameplay aspect of it, but nobody does. Where plus 8 hours is where you might maybe get your first weapon.
Yeah, which I don't mind that, but it sounds like you really aren't doing much before that. I'm just so confused by this game. Obviously, we're too new to get it for a review, but I might pick it up. I don't know yet. Like every time I read a review, like maybe let me read this review or let me listen to this podcast to try and make sense of it all. And it's definitely one of those things I just have to pick up for myself. Like I this might be one of those weird ones where reviews kind of don't matter to a certain extent. It's weird. I don't know. But if any, like, this seems like the perfect Kojima game, because Kojima seems like the dude that he would read a 3 out of 10 and be like, fuck yeah, nailed it. Like, he seems like he would be down for like a low score if it confused the hell out of the writer. And maybe that's what it's meant to do. Like, it's not for everyone, clearly, but I'm just fascinated by it. But I just don't know if I want to, like, it sounds like it's a long game too.
Yeah, like 50 hours.
Yeah, so it's just, and the people that finished it, that I know finished it, at the end of it, they came up being like, or still confused. And
yeah, like the ending, like they weren't really supposed to talk about, anything like past like the third chapter or anything like that. Like they're still kind of underneath a little bit of an embargo. But it sounds like the way that the game ends might not be worth the time investment that people feel that they put into it. And I always have a problem with that, because it's like you're telling somebody how to end the story that they wrote.
Yeah.
I don't like the way you did this. So this is, when I review games, I try to look at it from the perspective of maybe what they were trying to accomplish. And I never really tried to ding somebody for story or the way a game ended or how they wanted to put their quote unquote bow on it and what they wanted to finish. It was always more or less, how did the game run? How did it work? How did it play? That was always factors for me. Not, I was annoyed because I wanted to go to the right and you made me go to the left.
Yeah, one thing I try to stay out of doing in a review is being like, well, I would have, and like I feel like that's not helpful at all. Of just like, oh, you know what they should have done. Anytime I read that in a review, I've probably written stuff like that in the past, but it's definitely one of those things when I read another review and I see them being like, well, maybe if they did this, it would be better. And if it's not a mechanical thing of just like, oh, maybe if they changed the button layout, if it's like, oh, they should have did the story this way, that bothers me.
What sounds like is really, really cool in this game, though, is this social aspect that's there, but it's not really a social aspect. So as you're progressing through these terrains and things like that, you're going to come into areas that are more challenging to traverse, and apparently you can put ladders up and you can build zip lines and you can build things to help players later on traverse these areas. And they are able to, players that use your structures that you build are able to like give you like a thumbs up or a like, and that gives you more currency to therefore do other things, upgrade other things, and the currency is similar to what you earn as well for delivering something like undamaged.
Yeah, the some of the multiplayer aspects just kind of remind me of it's an expansion of like the Dark Souls, Demon Souls, like leaving hints for other people. It's some of that where you can see other people's trails and how they did stuff and find other like
a ghost mode in a racing game.
Yeah. It feels like it's like an expansion of that type of idea. I definitely need to play this game, but as I was reading the reviews, it was like, do I need to play this game the day it comes out, or do I wait 3 weeks for Black Friday and hope it's part of the sales? Because like Target is doing like a buy two get one free, but Death Stranding's excluded, like in the fine print. So that immediately ruined my plans, because there's like a bunch of other games that I want to play, especially there's a lot of small indie games that I want to play right now. But it's like, okay, do I get these 2 or 3 games, or do I take the chance on Death Stranding? Though it's a part of GameStop, which GameStop's doing that thing they did for Days Gone. You have 48 hours to love it or return it.
What are you gonna do? Play it straight?
But I feel like if I do like a 12-hour marathon, I would probably get an idea of whether it's worth doing the rest of the game.
Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. If it's weird enough in those first 12 hours, that will definitely be enough for me to continue. But I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. Hopefully, we'll find out next week if I'm like, hey, I played Death Stranding.
Right.
Or if I say, hey, I played Aladdin Lion King remasters.
Yeah. For those of you that most of you may or may not know this, Michael will just probably just fall under peer pressure with 2 or 3 of his friends buy it. He'll just buy it. So
I did it for Red Dead Redemption 2, but that didn't really work out because I still haven't finished that.
But if your buddies or any of your coworkers like pick this game up and are having it in their hands while they're at work and talking about it, you're gonna have a problem finishing that day.
No. The problem is everyone that like my coworkers know I do a video game podcast. They've been asking me for like the last 3 months, like, what the fuck is Death Stranding? And each time I'm like, I don't know. Norman Reedus drinks Monster Energy drinks. That's all I know. There's a baby in a jar. Conan O'Brien is in the game.
You can pee on things.
You can pee on things, but don't look at Norman Reedus while he's naked or he'll punch you. God, I need to get this game.
All right. What we're planning on watching. For me, it's very short. I traveled to a couple college visits, or one college visit with my daughter, the college that she's going to. She went down there to meet with her professor. It's also where my son goes. Not the same college, but close. So it's a 6-hour drive. So that was my Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was doing that. And the other stuff pretty much last week was preparing this.
This took a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like, I was looking back in my week and I'm just like, man, I spent like an off day working on the website stuff and then like 2-3 days just panicking about social media.
Yeah. So I really didn't play very much. I played just like, I just dabbled with Destiny. Like to be honest with you, I played a little bit of Destiny and like during loading screens because they're terribly long on consoles on Destiny. I was working on other things for this. So like but like the launch is out of the way, and I'm very confident in terms of our time to game and develop content and things like that will increase a little bit. Like I had a little bit of anxiety about the launch and things like that, but overall I had a really good weekend spending it with my family. I got a chance to see my son, my oldest son. I haven't seen him in a little over 2.5 months. So that was good to see him. He'll be home again on holiday break pretty soon. And just kind of talking to him about some stuff, and it doesn't, because he's that 20-year-old kid, and I was trying to, usually I try to get a gist of what's going on in the dorms and stuff like that with games. And it doesn't seem like where he goes is a huge gaming area or the people that he's running with, because I was curious of like feelings of Call of Duty and and all that stuff with Modern Warfare coming out, because like that used to be a big deal. Like Call of Duty Day used to be like a big deal, like in at least amongst certain people and things like that. So I always try to get the basis of what's going on. So yeah, unfortunately I didn't really watch a lot of stuff. It's just preparing Digital Days Gaming, working on some of the logos, doing the stuff that Michael was saying, keeping it quiet but still being very tentative of setting everything up so it was all ready to go at the time that we wanted it to launch, the YouTube channel, the Twitch channel, the Twitter. And just hoping that somebody just didn't randomly search this.
Yeah, having to upload the podcast like 4 days before we announce so we can be up on Apple was a little strange. You're just like, man, I'm just putting this website out there and then hopefully no one stumbles upon it, or we're gonna have to be like, surprise.
Yeah. So, but I think the launch went off pretty well without any crazy hitches or anything like that. We learned a couple things. Nothing too crazy. Bitly screws up with Patreon, doesn't like it.
Yeah, like I was able to get it to work, but one of my Bitlys was broken. Luckily, because something happened to Dave with a Bitly, I double and triple checked mine, and totally one was broken if I would have hit publish.
But yeah,
how was your Halloween?
Cold and wet. I took Owen, my 4-year-old, trick-or-treating. He lasted about 40 minutes. He got a good amount of candy because there wasn't a ton of people out there, so he was getting the 2 or 3 handfuls of candy at the couple houses we went to, and he's 4. So
what Fortnite character did he go as?
He went as Batman. So
Okay. That's a Fortnite character now, I believe, so it works out.
So he's not, super into any of that. And then the weather was terrible here. So I did not see. I didn't get a chance to really look at a lot of costumes and things like that to see what was going on, because even if they had a costume on, they had like an umbrella over their head and a jacket on. So
Yeah, we had ice storm, basically ice rain.
I had to scrape my car for the first time this quote unquote fall winter in Kentucky. I haven't had to scrape it in Michigan, but I had to scrape it in Kentucky.
I had to throw on my Doc Martens, man. I was just like, I couldn't wear my gym shoes. I had to take out the boots because of the ice. And no, because it kind of hit us out of nowhere, no one shoveled or had salt ready. So it was just taking like heavy baby steps onto the sidewalk and hoping I didn't crack my head open when I fell. It was brutal. Yeah.
So that is it for me for playing and watching. What about you?
So me and Sarah, she's playing through Dragon Age, the first one. So I'm watching a lot of Dragon Age, which is actually a really good story. The gameplay is a little bit rough just because we're playing it on a PS3, and it came out in the era when PS3 games were like broken, inherently broken. Like the Xbox ports were always better. So watching a like PS3 game in 2019, like an early PS3 game, is kind of rough, but overall the game, like the story, still holds up pretty well. She wants to run me through all three Dragon Age games, so then I could probably be disappointed when Dragon Age 4 comes out and BioWare continues their BioWare streak that they have going right now of broken games. So looking forward to that. Hopefully BioWare can pull it all together by the time the fourth game comes out. And then a majority of my time when I wasn't worrying about launching and the website was playing Modern Warfare. I was off for most of Saturday, so I was able to sit down and get through most of the campaign, and then today I finished it up. Really, I have mixed feelings about the campaign. Not surprising. I always have mixed feelings when it comes to games like this. It's a good Call of Duty campaign. I feel like sometimes they punch above their weight class with some of the story stuff they want to do. Like there's some controversial stuff in the game, as there always is. And like most of the time, I don't know if they quite nail it, or maybe they shouldn't have attempted it. Like I don't know. Light spoiler. Being waterboarded and then having to like move my head away from the water. I don't know if that's very fun, and I don't know. I know it's not supposed to be fun, but I don't know if it's executed well enough to where afterwards I was just like, "What the fuck were they just making me do?" There's story stuff like that, but from a gameplay perspective, it's still really good gameplay. It's a really good action movie, like blockbuster type of game. It isn't as bombastic as previous Call of Duty games, but we're talking about like this is like a reboot of the first game, like a reimagining, or not even reimagining, just a full-on reboot where it's like Captain Price is here, but it's not necessarily the same Captain Price it was in the first game. There was a huge escalation between Modern Warfare 2 and then 3. So this is definitely the first in probably a new trilogy that will escalate into the bombastic craziness that it was before. So it is definitely one of those things that I enjoyed my experience with it. And it was overall pretty good. I just don't know if it was amazing or great. I just finished it, so I probably need a little bit of time to reflect upon like everything that I saw. And then played a little bit more multiplayer. I still really can't get into the ground war stuff. I think it's just too chaotic and the map design isn't great. That's the Battlefield 32 versus 32 mode. So I've just been sticking to this like classic multiplayer because it's so good. I loved like the stripped down mechanics, like the classic play style that this game brings. With the refinements and the gameplay. So I've just been playing, like that's been taking over my free time. Just because those matches are so much shorter. Like Overwatch is usually my go-to, but an Overwatch game could be like 20 minutes. And in that 20-minute period, I can get like 2 or 3 death matches in Call of Duty. So it's just that's been like my go-to pretty consistently. But uh, overall, I'm just really enjoying that. And then I have like a stack of games that I want to get through. Like I plan to play Outer Worlds because I downloaded it from Game Pass. Uh, I have to decide soon whether I'm going to buy After Party and Aladdin or if I'm going to buy Death Stranding. So there's a chance I could have a lot of stuff to talk about next week, especially now that we have the launch out of the way. Because that was eating a lot more time than I expected it to. So like I'm hoping, Dave, you got Modern Warfare now as well, correct?
I do.
Yeah. So I'm hoping you can get through the campaign and then we can go over a little bit more detail. Some of the stuff because there's stuff I want to talk about in the game, but I don't really want to spoil it for you. And I feel like we can have like a good discussion if we break down the story in a little bit more depth. And then hopefully we can do some of the co-op because the co-op has been broken as hell for me. Like it load up and fall through the map broken, which has been pretty frustrating. I know they put a patch out Friday or Saturday. They put out a patch, and I think it was to address some of that stuff. But hopefully me and you can have success just because I've been trying to play with strangers and it's been pretty broken. So I'm hoping now that you have the game,
Yeah,
we
I
can
heard
get something together.
I heard there's a mode. I think it's the Spec Ops mode, which is exclusive to PS4. Is that the right mode, Spec Ops?
Yeah. Special.
Like I
Yeah.
heard that is like hard as hell if you're not with a coordinated, if you're not with a non-match made team.
It might be like super difficult. It's just been kind of broken for me, so I haven't really been able to try it too often.
Okay.
So hopefully if we get a squad together, it would be
Yeah, there's a handful of
functional.
people I know that have the game, so we can
Yeah.
definitely get something going for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's kind of it for me. Halloween was just kind of like destroyed by weather, but I worked that day anyways. So we just had like a friend over. Me and Sarah had a friend over, and we just like watched random scary movies. And it's just been a lot of Dragon Age and Call of Duty, which is weird. It's like I'm living in the past because I'm playing Call of Duty and watching Dragon Age. But hopefully, either next week I'll be talking about cool indie games and weird remasters, or Death Stranding, and being very confused and probably frustrating Dave as I try and explain Death Stranding. But yeah, that's it for me for playing and watching.
yeah. Hopefully, like for me, like I plan to go see. I've got a couple more days off work. I plan to go see like the new Terminator movie this week. I'll just go to like my local theater at like 10 o'clock in the morning. It's like $5. And then I'll play Modern Warfare, and things like that. I'll play a little bit more Destiny. There's some stuff going on with Destiny. It had a bunch of content that released last week, but I don't want to necessarily bore you guys with that stuff. I think that I'm going to, because we can do this partially because of the podcast services that we use and things like that compared to previous practices. I may just try to do my own Destiny rants without Michael and just upload it, and that way if you guys want to listen to it you can, if you don't you don't, versus it being like in the middle of a podcast. I love that game, but I do respect the fact that not everybody does and not everybody cares about it as much as I do, and therefore I think if I do something separate for you guys, and that if you want to it's there and if you don't it's not. So
Yep.
And that could definitely be something that evolves more onto individual features of what him and I or Michael and I are passionate about, that maybe we want a 15-minute rant about something, but one of the things that we both are very passionate about is questions and interacting with the community. So we put some stuff up on the Facebook group that we have now. And by the way, that Facebook group is live. You can search Digital Days Gaming. I sent an invite to a lot of people, but I can only send invites to you if you're friends with me on Facebook. I did get a lot of friend requests on Facebook over the last month or so, but I'm sure that that's not everybody. So I believe you can search the group and then you can request to join. And then once you request to join, we can approve you. That group is an interactive group, I hope. Lately, the last couple of days, it seems to be me posting a couple of things, but there's been some things in there. But the Facebook group is there for you guys. and I hope that it can be something that grows and evolves into you guys giving us topics that you want us to talk about, posting news stories in there that maybe are interesting, and it would spark a discussion with the community. And then we also have a Facebook page that you can like, where we will more than likely post hey, do you have questions? Or, we're live, we're doing this, in terms of things that would show up on your news feed versus you individually going into a group, similar to how Twitter works. And then our YouTube channel, youtube.com/digitaldaysgaming. I think right now you have to click directly on a link or search Digital Days Gaming, and you'll find episode 1, where then you can subscribe to it. I don't think that the channel itself shows up as a search until we get 3 videos live. And then Twitch. So twitch.tv/digitaldaysgaming. We're on the road to affiliation right now, so there are some benchmarks that we have to hit to get an affiliation. I've seen a couple of you guys give feedback that you would like to support us through affiliations. Then that's great and that's awesome. The easiest way that what we need from you guys right now that is most important is a follow. We need to hit a certain number of follows in order to check a box. So if you can follow us, that would be greatly appreciated. If you could tell somebody else just to follow us. Even if you tell somebody to follow us and turn notifications off at this point in time. I would love for people to watch our streams and stuff like that. But ultimately, I understand that maybe it just could be a friend of yours that you're saying, hey, help us out, or anything like that. But we'll worry about the next step after affiliation. Once we get affiliation, that would be a long-term goal. But I would love to see us get our affiliation before the beginning of the year, before Christmas. Like, that would be a goal that I would have for us. To help in terms of giving you guys more things that you can offer.
Yeah, that's all Dave wants for Christmas.
Yeah. So, and then you can even, like, if we are streaming, you can open up the tab and just leave it open and mute it if you want. Like, that's something that's really nice. So that helps tremendously as well. But questions. So we want you guys to send us questions. So previous companies that we were with, we had a hashtag. I don't know if we're going to have a hashtag. There's DDG is something that does exist. And I didn't, I think I understand the wrestling reference. It's Diamond Dallas Page, right?
Yeah, someone realized that the acronym for the Twitter feed, or our Twitter, is DDP, which completely unintentional. I was a WWF guy, not a WCW guy, but I'll take it. I will take it.
Digital Days Gaming was too long for Twitter.
Yeah.
So that's why it became Digital Days Pod. So, and Digital Days exists somewhere else. Especially, like, I know that there's other things that it exists for. But anyways, yeah. Digital Days Gaming. So we got a question from Stefan that I think that Michael and I decided that we wanted to kind of just get out right away. Put it on the table and get it out. So Stefan on Facebook goes, what made you guys set off on your own? So for me, set off is, I think, a bad term. My exit from PS Nation was abrupt and sudden. Not planned, not expected. Something happened that I decided that I was time to move on, and we did. We parted ways. I've been calling it creative differences. So I had creative differences with PS Nation. So that's why I stopped. So, and I'll let Michael say what he wants to say, and then I'll pick back up in a second.
Yeah. For me, after Dave's exit, it just was one of those things where it's just like, it's been a very dramatic year for being over there. So the idea of, like, going through another co-host definitely didn't sound like it would be great for me. I didn't like the way other things happened, and I didn't want to continue there under those circumstances. And just in general, like, I think the more important thing of why I left, though, is just kind of like creative freedom in terms of just like having control over what I create, and like building up something on my own or building something up with Dave. Like, it definitely wasn't planned. I mean, if it was planned, we would have had Digital Days Gaming like up the next day, ready to go. Like, it took us.
It was more or less. I left, and then a couple of days later, Michael was talking to me, trying to, at that time, before I left, trying to convince me to not leave.
Yeah.
And then it went down to where I was like, okay, I'm done. And then a couple of days later, he's like, you know what? I don't think that I want to, and I don't mean to speak for you, but I don't think I want to go forward. And I was like,
no.
I respect that. I understand that. And then after he had decided to leave, we stay in touch, and it was kind of one of those things where him and I work really well together. I enjoy working with Michael. I enjoyed working with Josh as well. And Josh was one a long time ago that I was tentative about. We'll get to him in a minute. But I was very concerned about that because initially on paper, Josh and I didn't get along. Well, before I was on a podcast with him.
Yeah.
But Michael and I have, even before we were podcasting together, we randomly would play some games together. He hates it, but I raided with him, and he's like, I'm done with this game in Destiny.
It's just because it took like 3 hours to do it, and like it wasn't because it was difficult. It was because people kept fucking up.
Yeah. So, but I mean, and we've shared a room together at E3. The last couple. I mean, he's been
more than a room, Dave.
Yeah.
We shared a bed together.
We did the VR review event together in Milwaukee, and things like that. So like Michael and I are very good friends. And we work well together. We have good banter. He challenges me, I challenge him. So us working together again just seemed to fit.
Yeah.
And we did have a good rhythm going. So
yeah, especially we were getting a lot of feedback towards the end of our run of like, you guys have really hit your stride, and like everything was kind of coming together after having, Josh's exit kind of like threw us for a loop and like threw us a little bit off course, but we finally hit a rhythm, and it almost felt like a waste of us building up a new rhythm to just be like, all right, fuck it, done. Dave will go off and do something, and I'll try and rebuild again. So I was just like, no, it's just better off to just me and Dave could work together. Me and him have the same kind of goals for what we want to do. And Dave left for creative differences. I just wanted to start my own thing and have creative control, so that kind of gelled well together. And having a 2-man operation is just like easier, like I don't think we're gonna grow beyond 2 people, or at least for the near future. Just because it gets complicated when you have like a bunch of people, So this is a nice, streamlined, simple thing to do.
All right, so thank you for that question, Stefan. And then Noe, will at PJF Josh ever show up on your podcast? I miss that dude. So at PJF Josh is Josh Langford, former. We had a 3-man show on PS Nation for a little while, and I would love to move forward from this and not have to talk about PS Nation on a regular basis. So that's why we're trying to get it out in front and over with. Josh is 100% welcome on this show whenever he wants to be on this show. I know for a fact that Josh is enjoying his time right now with his family and working through some things and getting some things taken care of. He is still doing some Extra Life stuff. So if you look at our Twitter feed, if you don't follow Josh, you should. And definitely check out his Extra Life stream. He's got one more day, I think. By the time we release this podcast, we got so when this podcast releases, he'll have another day, like within the next 2 days, over that weekend. So you should definitely check that out and donate to that if at all possible. And there is an open seat for Josh here anytime that he wants. He will be. I feel like he'll be the go-to substitute if one of us has to miss for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not me though, because I literally have all the images in the stream and everything like that, which I'm sure I can get to Michael, but hopefully it doesn't happen in the near future.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't do that, Dave. Hopefully.
Yeah. But I would love to see Josh on the show at least 3 times a year minimum.
Yeah, no, I've already reached out to Josh a couple times, especially like when everything went down. I did like feel out Josh a little bit in terms of like, hey man, how's it going? But he sounds like very happy. Turns out when you don't have to be an editor and a podcast host, you have a lot of free time. So he's enjoying his free time, spending it with his kids. But he's definitely, I do want to hopefully have him on at least before the end of the year, and like Dave said, hopefully a couple times a year. Whether that's just like a one-off podcast or if it's just a regular episode, I wouldn't mind check-ins with Josh Langford. Maybe he can, we find out where he is on Stargate, because I'm sure he's rewatching it right now. So it's definitely there's an open invitation to Josh, and I'm pretty sure we can get Josh as a guest if he hasn't like lost his microphone.
Yeah. I just had to set the image up for 3 cameras, and I don't even know if I can do that.
Oh, damn. Okay, non-live episodes will have Josh.
Yeah. And then so Bill writes on Twitter, can you two see next gen games taking more advantage of companion apps on phones/tablets to enhance the experience? Go ahead.
I think we might be done with that. I think we might be done with it. So. They tried it during the PS3, if I remember correctly, with a couple games, and then they tried it again PS4. I remember Ubisoft was big on it with like Watch Dogs and I think another game, and it didn't work out. So I think we might be over with it. Yeah, I'm like so happy.
Knack had like a match 3 game or something like that like unlocked components in the game. But yeah, I think the days of like an app integrating with something are done. In terms of using it maybe as an inventory tool, like Destiny has the ability on PC and on their app to actually like move armor and weapons around. So you don't have to necessarily like go to your vault every time. Like I think something like that as a possible enhancement can work. But in terms of something that where like I even think like Battlefield had like the commander mode that you could like command your team like on your iPad or on your tablet, and that just didn't seem to go over very well.
Yeah, I can still see it being used for like Jackbox games and like party games because it just makes sense to use your phone.
But then I almost feel like that's a control. I was gonna say that's a controller. That's not an enhancement.
Yeah, but definitely like the commander mode stuff, or like how like the multiplayer for Watch Dogs are supposed to work a little bit, where people can affect all the card lights and like they kind of playing co-op with you. I think that's done. It has to be. Because you can play full games on your phone now more than you could have back then. So I think
instead of Call of Duty making a game that's compatible with their PS4 or Xbox version of their game, they just make a mobile game.
Yeah, they just make
Call a really good mobile game.
Apparently, yeah. So there's definitely other things they could put their development time into. So hopefully, though we say this now and then in like March at GDC, they pull out their phone for the PlayStation 5 reveal or whatever, and they're just like, and you can do this. It's like, no, hopefully it's over.
I would love to see, and it seemed like it worked really well for a little while, and then it kind of went by the wayside, but I liked the ability that I could turn my PlayStation on with the PS4 app. Like if I was away from it.
Yeah.
And you could like kick certain things off, and I know they kind of like more or less move towards the remote play, like the phones now have like a remote play app and things like that. But I still really like the ability to like when Destiny gets an update or a game gets an update and you want to play it when you get home and you're like, oh shoot, the patch launched and I turn my console off or it's in rest mode, and even when it's in rest mode sometimes it doesn't do what it says it's going to do, and like look for the update. Like when you get home, you turn it on and wake it up and it's like, oh, it has an update, and then the copying takes an eternity. I would love to see like something like that in terms of my ability to see like what my system is doing when I'm not in front of it.
Yeah, I mean, I use my phone to like kick off downloads to my primary console. Though sometimes I forget which one is my primary console, and then I'm very disappointed when I get home. And I realize, I kicked it to the living room and I wanted to kick it to my monitor. But yeah, I can see console integration with like features, but I think games are done with it. Or at least I hope they are, because I didn't really like companion apps for games, just because it's like, just put everything in the game. Like, and everything was in a game, but like I just don't see myself looking at my phone while I'm playing a game. If the game's good enough, my phone is like away and off.
Correct. Yeah. To the point of where when somebody calls you, you get annoyed.
Yeah. Because that's the problem. Is if I'm pulling out my phone, I'm gonna be like, oh, there's a Twitter notification, or let me look at Facebook, and
then you're down
taken away
hole.
from the experience. Yeah.
All right, so those are the questions that we got sent in for this week. So again, feel free to just tweet a question at us, make a question in the Facebook group, post a question on the like page, ask a question in the YouTube comments, anywhere like that. Again, like we talked about, I just want to emphasize the Twitch just a little bit. The plan is going to be, once we get our schedules a little bit more fleshed out, is that Michael will have days that he can stream on primarily, and I'll have days that I stream primarily on. As an example, mine could be like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Michael's would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Sunday would be streamed podcast day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of just a tentative thing. It might end up being a Monday, Tuesday, Friday thing for me. Who knows? Like, it just could depend on the schedules. But that way, for you guys as viewers and listeners, that you know, like, oh, like there's a stream firing up Monday night. 95% of the time, it's Dave. You know, I don't want to watch that crap. All right, so I'm not going to watch it. So, or if it ends up being on a Wednesday, it's like, oh, this is Michael's day. He plays, you know, he's into a game right now that I'm really into. I want to see what he's streaming, and then you know. So that's the goal there. Again, we just really we need those follows on Twitch to help us to grow into another way to monetize. And then our Patreon as well. We've already got a couple Patreons. Thank you guys so much. Patrons. We've already got a couple patrons, so we really appreciate that. That was definitely unexpected right away. And then also we want feedback on it on Patreon. Like, look at it, see if it's something that you see that you think that you might want to do, and if it's not, like, that's okay. You downloading the podcast and interacting on the Twitch channels and interacting with us on Twitter and stuff like that is definitely more than enough. But we would also be curious as to maybe why. Is it too much? Is it not enough? Is it not a cool enough reward? What would you like to see from it? It can be an evolving and growing process. To see how that grows. We tried to keep it pretty condensed into a certain dollar amount. Under $10 was very important to both of us. But if that's something that, you know, maybe you're looking for more, like, we can definitely have a conversation if you're looking for more. But if you don't think that there's enough value to it, like, let us know. And then we can gather some feedback, and we can always make adjustments. The cool thing about Patreon is that Michael or myself can change it whenever we want. And still, like, the goal will be to still hit the marks of what we expect to deliver. So if, even if it's one person that wants an early access to the podcast, like, we'll make it happen, because that's the expectation we laid out. So the other thing that we're going to go over quickly is just our spotlight. And our spotlight is like what we're looking for, what's on the horizon for us, or what's really grabbing our attention right now. So I'm going to kick it back over to Michael for that.
Okay, so this week, as we're doing this live, Death Stranding is definitely on my list of what I'm looking forward to. But actually, a game that I know for sure I'm going to pick up is After Party, which is a game from the developers of Oxenfree. I'm looking forward to playing that. It's a game I've been kind of excited about just because I like the concept. It's two people find themselves in hell, and they need to get out of it, and there's a lot of drinking and, like, partying involved in it, apparently. So I'm looking forward to finally getting a chance to play that. I'm definitely probably going to buy that this week. But if you're listening to this on Friday, what I'm looking forward to next week, the week of the 10th, is Pokemon Sword and Shield. Because I could talk about Nintendo games now. So I'm looking
Lord help
forward.
Us all.
Yep, I'm looking forward to that. Because I have a secret shame. I've never actually finished a Pokemon game. I've played every Pokemon game, except maybe the last one or two, but I've never been able to finish one. I'm hoping that this one will be one that I can finish. I just always get too deep into them, but then get thrown off and distracted, never see it to the finish line and roll credits. So I'm hoping to do that with Pokemon Sword and Shield, especially. I played the Switch more than I ever played my DS or my Game Boy. Just because the convenience of just docking it and playing it at home is really, really important to me now lately. Especially, I was mostly playing in handheld, but now that I'm in a new apartment, have a nice living room set up, I find myself docking the Switch. So I'm looking forward to Pokemon Sword and Shield, which is out on the 15th. Dave, you got anything to spotlight?
I don't have anything directly like that I'm looking forward to like next week. I mean, obviously, I'm looking forward to the streaming for you guys and digging into Call of Duty Modern Warfare. But the thing that intrigued me the most that I realized, like I saw this hit my Twitter feed like last week, and I was disappointed. But then I was like, wait, I don't need to be disappointed now. So Darksiders Genesis.
Oh yeah.
I really, really liked that game when I saw it at E3. And they kept saying 2019, 2019, 2019. And I'm like, okay, I haven't heard anything about this. And then, sure enough, a tweet shows up. And the tweet was that it's coming to consoles in February of 2020. And I was like, oh, well, that sucks. It's coming to PC in December.
Oh, yeah. It's coming.
Like December 5th, I want to say.
And it's not Stadia exclusive or anything, right?
No. So I can play that. And I get to play it on PC. And, like, it's one of those things where, I was, again, like you said, like talking about Nintendo games and things like that, like looking at PC, like I mentioned last week, of like when Steam runs a sale now or something's, discounted, like I might be more apt to pull the trigger and play different games. Like I need to force myself to broaden my horizons. Like I've got, a handful of games on Games Pass downloaded that I haven't played yet. I want to play Outer Worlds. I want to play Gears 4. I want to play Gears 5. Void Bastards, like you mentioned. I was checking out a couple things for that. So for me, like the thing that's like the most intriguing to me is the ability to choose again. And not that we couldn't choose before, but we had a job that was focused on a particular platform. And so like when something like that happens, like it's crazy. Like to where it's like, oh man, I would have had to, I'm still not used to having the gaming PC to where it doesn't like always register in my head. Like, because I got so used to being a console person my entire life. And now to check something out on PC, like I even forget that I have Destiny on PC if I want to play it. So, but that is what I'm looking forward to the most. So again, I mentioned it last week, and I know as our viewership and listenership is increasing, like if there are games that are on PC that you guys think are like must plays that I may probably haven't played, let me know. Tweet at me. Tweet at me directly at Good Dave Hunt. Tweet at the main account at Digital Days Pod. Say it on Facebook. Say it on the Facebook group. Any of that stuff. So you can even tweet it at Michael and he'll tell me. So Michael's is at the first MJC. So I think that's it for this week. Do you got anything else?
No. That's it. There's a lot of games that I want to get to this week. So this week will be a little lighter. But it's pretty much it. Thanks for all the support, everyone that's subscribing to us on the various platforms. You can subscribe to podcasts. Please share the podcast with your friends. Any retweets on Twitter, shares on Facebook help a lot.
Visibility is huge at this point in time. Like right now for us, anybody getting their eyes on what we're producing is a huge help. So if you're not able to be a Patreon and you're not able to, when we become affiliate, if you're not able to support us, like just sharing the show, sharing the Facebook page or sharing the Twitter account, all that stuff is huge. Yeah,
especially we're building again, so we need to get the word out, and our Twitter accounts are only like so big, so anything outside of that, our personal bubbles, will help a lot, and it's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, feedback too, like if you like the live streams, if you don't like the live streams, if you're like if you like the YouTube videos, if you don't like the YouTube's videos, like I didn't even think about it, but then all of a sudden, like on Friday when my wife was driving a car and I get a YouTube notification. Like I haven't got a YouTube notification ever. And I was like, wait, we're getting YouTube notifications. I'm like, oh, people are commenting on the video. I go, this is cool.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. Like it's humbling, and it also like drives me to think more and to like what else can we do to produce interesting content for you. We mentioned it last week, but it's 2019. Like you guys seeing us, it can't just be turn the red light on and just watch things happen. Like it's getting out there, showing what we're going to do, building the community, interacting with you guys, and building a brand. But we want to build the brand with you.
Yes.
So thanks. That's a long word, long way for me to say. I appreciate it. So I hope everyone has an awesome week. Play all the games that you can with your kids, with your significant other, or by yourself. Just have a great time. Talk to you guys
Yeah,
next week.
and don't. Yeah. See you guys next week.